Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast.
Which podcast is this, Jesse?
Yes.
I do believe you're blushing.
Yes,
Oh boy.
Yes, thank you, Karen, for noticing that pure second when I went.
Sorry.
I know I'm talking Babylon 5, but I'm like, now what's the name of that podcast
I
again?
can see the gears in your brain.
You folks really should
podcast at Lusting Brews, Next Stop Everywhere. Oh yeah,
you should really be having some video right now, folks. I've never seen a 65-year-old man blush so hard.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
I shouldn't call you out on it.
Oh,
no, I'm glad you did.
That's so cute.
As you can hear, I am Jesse Jackson. Joining me are my two wonderful friends, Lou.
Happy and happy Mother's Day to all our mothers who are listening.
And the podcast mom, Karen. So see, you get a happy Mother's Day because
happy
you're
Mother's
the podcast
Day.
Mom. Yes.
Yeah, and I have a cat and a husband, which both count apparently. Hi, everyone. Also, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers that are listening.
Yes, my lovely bride wants the same thing she always does. We're just doing ribeyes and fresh corn and baked beans for dinner.
Yummy.
So that should be fun. Yeah.
I got a muffin this morning for breakfast as a treat. So.
Oh, nice. All right. Today's episode is Between the Darkness and the Light.
Sounds like a Springsteen song.
Yeah, it does. That does. Boy, we should do AI. Write a Bruce Springsteen song with the title Between the Darkness and the Light. Yeah. Someone who does that, send that to me, please. Season 4, episode 19, originally aired October 6th, 1997. And as always, we want to start with quick thoughts. Karen.
I liked it. I think it was a decent follow-up to last week. And I can't wait to see how we discuss it.
All right, Lou.
Yeah, there's a lot in this episode. I would have preferred that some of the events in this had been spread out over separate episodes, but for what there was, a lot happened. Maybe just a little too quickly for my liking.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of I don't have 5 years to tell my story. I only have 4.
Yeah.
So therefore, I got to move some crap along.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, because you're right. There's a lot going on here that we could have discussed. And I remember really liking this episode. I still did. I can see the flaws now after the 3rd or 4th or 5th rewatch.
And because of our influence.
maybe a little. But there are things that work a lot. Did you guys, for just a half a second, think you missed an episode when you see Franklin and John talking? And Karen, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, just for a second, I realized fairly quickly because Franklin wouldn't be asking those questions. He's on Mars. Right. It took me, about half of that little opening time to figure out that it wasn't something that was skipped over. I thought about, hey, I better back this up and make sure. And by the time I thought that, I was like, okay, this is the right episode. So,
Lou?
No, I thought they were doing one of those episodes where they were going to get into it a little bit and then they're going to go say 48 hours ago. But
flashback.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I thought they were going to do.
Which is a trope they do fairly often in a lot of shows.
And movies.
Yeah, with me, because at this time it was on TNT and it was stripped. You had every episode one day, a daily. And you're taping it on VHS to rewatch because it came on during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought maybe, did I skip one? And I think that it was just the right amount length. I think it was just a little wink, wink. And then, okay, we're going to show you. And so I thought that was pretty nice. So I'm going to try not to give us whiplash by flipping all over. But I did think that there's we want to talk about Garibaldi. We want to talk about Sheridan's release. We want to talk about the battle. So I thought we just would start on something that's none of that, the League meeting.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed that Delenn is confused. Lanier is, holy crap, something's going on. We need to go, in his quiet Minbari way. And Londo and G'Kar being very smug is the wrong word, but very pleased that they're able to stand next to them. And I continue this, I call this Londo's redemption tour. They don't have Oprah back then, so he can't go visit Oprah. So, Lou, what are your thoughts on this? Do you buy that the League would support them? And what do you think of those scenes?
I thought it was the highlight of the episode, to be honest. Even with my problems of G'Kar and Londo being so amiable towards each other, especially when we just had the previous episode where G'Kar wouldn't even drink with Londo. But I understood the intent of the scene, and I thought it was a very nice payoff to the Shadow Wars arc of Earth and Babylon 5 protecting the League of Worlds, and now the League of Worlds are stepping in to return the favor. I half expected them to show up in this episode when Susan went off to fight the new class of dreadnoughts, but I guess they're saving that for the finale. Yeah, it was really nicely done, and Delenn and Lanier's reaction to it was great because, like us, we're expecting we have a cynical take on it. At least I did. I expected they were going to come up with something really bad. Like it was poised to seem like the League of Worlds was deciding to bow out totally and just to go their own way. And then instead what we got was the 180 from that, which was great. So I think it was the best scene in the episode from my perspective.
Karen.
Yeah. First off, with this scene included in this episode, that meant that every person in the opening credits was in the episode except for Zach.
I hadn't thought of that.
Which is a breath of fresh air. I do like that they included almost everyone. I can see where Zach would have had to been shoehorned in to get everyone in, but I really appreciated that we got to see everybody. And of course, Londo and G'Kar together is always pleasant to watch. I think that, to address Lou's point, my thought is that he is doing this for Babylon 5 being behind them more than he is doing it for any other reason. And for that reason, he is putting up with Londo. I think it's very difficult for him to partner with Londo right now, but he feels like that's what he has to do in order to get he's logical. So he knows that these other worlds won't sign on unless they show some kind of solidarity. They could say, you guys aren't going to participate together, so why should I participate? He knows there's that possibility. So I like that G'Kar is smart enough to get it. I like that Londo was smart enough to propose it in the first place. I also like that G'Kar isn't, and we didn't see it in this episode, but we saw it in the episode earlier where he doesn't drink with Londo, that G'Kar is doing this kind of under protest. That makes sense to me. And I also liked Lanier's reaction. That's about as panicked as he gets.
Yeah.
It's not like he over emotes, but I was taken by how distressed he was that they were meeting without her. And especially since they're not only meeting without her because she's on the council, but she is running Babylon 5 right now. So she should not be out of the loop on that. But I see why they did it. They wanted to do it without their influence. Try to get together on our own, and then we'll take it to the Minbari. And I think it was just very smartly played. I do also think it was my favorite scene in the episode. I really like when they play off each other. And I also like where it's headed, that these two are going to spearhead the backing of Babylon 5 and Sheridan and so forth. So
I am so happy you both said that, because let's make this 3 for 3. It was my favorite scene, and that's why I wanted to talk about it first.
Awesome.
I absolutely got a little misty-eyed where Londo being so cocky, oh, you can't vote unless the Mabari's here. Okay, since you're here, let's vote. And without telling her. And then the idea of this, you were there for us. And Londo's point, would the game do that for the Drazi? Or Pakmar, would the Drazi do this for Narn? But you humans did. And I just thought it was really well done. And I really enjoy watching you're watching Londo. By far, I think that these Peter Jurassic, Andreas, right? This is the roles of their lifetime, in my opinion. And I just think they have taken this in such a great journey. And so I'm curious to see as we continue, because we do have the rest of this one and then all of 5 left to see.
Yeah, and notably Andreas Katsoulis, who was in so many other things, and I do think that he is so good in this role. He almost embodies G'Kar.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to think of him as someone under makeup to me.
Yeah.
It's he's perfect.
And it goes back to our roots, right? After a while on Farscape, Rigel isn't a puppet. Rigel's a character.
Pilot is definitely not a puppet.
Yeah, you just think of them as just characters. So,
yeah.
We talked about last time that originally the Garibaldi stuff would have been in last episode, because Stravinsky had said, I was a coward. I didn't want to just do the episode with just these 2 people, but it went long, so I had to move it, and it turned out to work. And I'll start with you this time, Karen. Garibaldi needing more fiber, throwing himself on the mercy of the telepath. Did you think number 1 was right to try to kill him? Just all about this up until, and we'll go to Lita being able to project the images to number 1. Okay.
Yeah, that's not something that normal telepaths can do, right?
That's correct.
So again, it's showing that she is different because of what happened to her with what the worst back then. I think that they played that pretty well. I'm not sure that number 1 would be so overzealous, but knowing that there are telepaths there on the planet that are working for Earth, that are scanning people without their knowledge, she's already got a beef against them. And we saw in the last episode that, or 2 episodes ago, I don't remember, that she is not for Lita being there. Did think it was really a little quick that she buys into the whole thing. Once Lita projects, she's right. I think it might have taken a little more convincing, but I get they can't draw out the episode that much. I appreciated that they weren't ready to talk to Garibaldi. It's pretty fresh, but Michael knows that if he doesn't do something now, then things will be lost. And he's going to do whatever it takes to convince Franklin that they have to go after Sheridan. And like I said in that other episode, there's a reason they went to Mars. There's a reason Franklin and Lita went to Mars, writing wise. And I assumed that this is what's going to happen, that they were going to have to scan Michael to get the information because they weren't going to believe him. I did like how they did the little flashy sequence in his brain. Kind of reminded me of Chuck a little bit, right? Where they flash through certain things in their brain. And then it was almost the same. I don't know whether it was the exact same sequence or a slightly different sequence that she projects into number 1's brain, but liked that it's like she takes it on a platter from Garibaldi and just goes, here you go, and serves it up to number 1. And it's almost like she wasn't sure what she was doing. I don't know if you got that same feeling from it, but I felt like she was surprised that she could project that into number 1's brain.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Because of the Vorlon's influence, Lita can do more And that's why Bester wanted her brain. And it is, you want to know hell here, right? And
I felt like it was almost like, okay, I can do this, but I didn't know I could do this. Here you go. That's the feeling I got. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you.
No, I think that's anything else, or we want to give Lou a chance?
No, it's Lou's turn.
Lou.
Yeah, I think what sticks out most from what Karen said, and I said off the top, this is one of the sections of the episode that really felt rushed to me. And I think it's part of the dynamics of the show is because they only have so much budget to go around. So number one basically is speaking for everybody on Mars. But when she says, "Oh, I believe it," you would expect some of her subordinates to say, "Oh, come on, seriously?" Like she might have done something to you. She might have brainwashed you or blah, blah, blah. But because none of the other Mars Rebellion characters have any speaking lines, it makes it very isolated, very rushed feeling. And I would have liked Garibaldi to have experienced more pain from the probe because this was level 12 Psychor blocks. And he basically just came out of it with nothing, which seemed to contradict everything they were saying up to that moment before she actually did the probe past the blocks. So that I just try to keep in mind, like you said, that they didn't know they were getting to season 5, so they had to rush through things. But this is one of those moments where I think this scene could have been drawn out over the whole episode. And the other thing, the way the episode is structured, we don't get the catharsis moment of Garibaldi and Sheridan acknowledging each other and forgiving each other, or basically, which is a moment that I think audiences, at least I always want those kind of moments. And I didn't get it in this episode. I hope we get it in the next one. But then they dumped a whole bunch of other stuff on us on top of that. So this whole moment, this has been a season-long arc for Garibaldi, but this is getting buried under all this other stuff that's happening. So I don't like the way the episode is structured, even bearing in mind that they didn't know they were going to get a 5th season. That would be my biggest qualm with it. But beyond that, yeah, it was good that Franklin stood up for Garibaldi. I thought the gunplay with the Lita was a little weird. Like, she's shooting at the ceiling, so why doesn't somebody just shoot her? Like, when she's aiming up at the ceiling.
They already don't like her, right?
Yeah.
It would have been a perfect time to put her down, but yeah, you just have to go with it. It's just they're trying to show that Franklin and Lita are willing to give Garibaldi a chance. So you just, okay, I'll roll with it. The staging of that scene was a little clumsy to me, but overall, I appreciated what they were trying to do. I just wished it was done over a longer span of time to allow the actors to really, the dramatic possibilities that moment offered and were skipped over.
Yeah,
I agree. I do. Let me say 2 little things real quick.
Sure.
Again, Monday morning quarterbacking. If Garibaldi had stumbled against a wall as they're walking down the hallway or something, that would have shown that it affected him. And it wouldn't have had to take any time. There could have been like a 1 sentence, "Sorry, that got me," or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the background, you could see her crew, number one's crew, behind her. And they were literally just stone-faced. They didn't have any reaction to her immediately buying into what Lita said. No reaction. And maybe if they could have, what's going on? Yeah. Just anything in the background would have made me buy into it a little bit more, at least.
Yeah. And once again, we are Monday morning quarterbacking, and in an alternate world where this was the 2nd or 3rd episode of season 5, right? Because they had talked about that the interrogation was going to be the season finale. So this would have been probably the 1st or 2nd episode of the new season. The Garibaldi and Sheridan rescue could have been the storyline.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
With the meeting of the aligned worlds, the alliance of the worlds as your B plot. And then it could have taken longer. It could have been more torture to Garibaldi, more doing that. Actually showing number one meeting with her people and going, you may not know them, but you know me, and I'm telling you this is valid. Garibaldi, because while the drinking water and the gulp is a very funny scene, right? And if you watch it the second time, it does look like Steven gulps a little more than sips.
Yeah.
Just a couple of seconds. And so Garibaldi is acting normal. And you're right. If you could have just him doing this, we're like, wow, you
anything.
really, I agree. But I am glad that I felt like it wasn't a cheat, that because we've established that Lita is very powerful, and that, so I think that was enough to get us there. I did want to mention, I absolutely agree with you, Lou. I was very frustrated again that there was no, the only thing we got was Sheridan going, oh yeah, I was going to do something, I was going to hurt you, or I can't remember the exact line, right? But I can't remember why. Why would, and I think once again, if they'd had room, Sheridan would have tried to attack him.
Yeah.
And it would have done, so I feel, once again, I feel like this was a little, okay, we've got a hell of a lot of story to tell. Let's keep moving. And for what their limitations, it really works. I'm really happy with it, but I wanted more. I'm greedy.
Yeah, he hasn't suffered enough.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but from all the bad things he's done over the season, it was a pretty quick turnaround for me.
And I would have, and we'll see if they have residual resentment.
Right.
The same way that Londo has done so much. You just can't, bygones, to quote Ally McBeal. So let Iz go on to the rescue. A couple of things. They end up stealing uniforms from a couple of guards. Then magically, they were 2 gray uniforms, and then one of them becomes blue. But we'll hand wave that.
Hand wave.
And how do you know it's absolutely going to fit the same way? And where did Lita's new clothes come from? But forget all that. I do love the fact that Garibaldi used the idea that, hey, I was on ISN. I'm traitor number 1. You can trust me to use to get in there. Let's go ahead, and I believe it's Lou's turn to go first. Let's talk about the breakout.
Weakest part of the episode for me, all the things that you mentioned. Though I got to be honest, I didn't catch the uniform color change, but just the responses of the guards and the security booth guy just didn't buy much of it. I did. Garibaldi I thought he sold his part, but the reactions of everybody around him from the Earth team didn't sell it to me at all. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. That I just didn't really enjoy much of this except for Garibaldi. And I did Lita doing the pain thing to the one guard. That was interesting. So,
yeah.
But beyond that, weakest part of the episode.
And if she can do that pain, why didn't she do it with both of them? Maybe you can only just direct, right? But yeah.
I got
these aren't the prisoners that you're looking for. Why didn't she?
I was thinking of that too. I was like, why didn't she just go to
these aren't the droids you're looking for?
Yeah, or the Doctor Who psychic paper.
Right.
She just holds up a paper, and in her mind, like, oh, it's a sign directly from President Clark. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not on the same page as Lou for this one. I didn't think it was the strongest part of the episode by any stretch of the imagination, but I like a prison break. And I thought, like Lou, I thought Garibaldi did a good job of getting them in there. He's not a brilliant strategist, so that part fell a little flat. Like, how did he come up with this plan so quickly? But I think what he did was pretty good. And I like that they didn't fool the guards 100%. That made it a little more believable to me. But I do like and it's not banter, but they're back and forth in the hallway of, hey, let me handle this. And there was a little bit of friction between them, which again was believable. I like that they rescued him that way. It was believable to me. And like I said, I like a heist or a prison break or anything I've got a plan, as you guys know. So yeah, I did appreciate that. There was the thought in my head, why didn't she just do something to get them past the guards instead of this whole double talking thing? But I think it worked well in the story that Garibaldi used the fact that they had twisted his brain. It's like he uses it for good.
Yeah.
In this episode. So that was a good twist to it. Yeah, I didn't think it was the worst part of the episode. I think that the scene with Garibaldi and number one and all that might have been the weakest scene for me.
So one thing from the notes that on the script book that the script has Sheridan shooting the guard once. And they decided because it was running a little short, that they were able to copy paste where he shot multiple times just to expand that scene a little bit. And it turned out to be really nice where the "Are you okay?" line became more "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Right? So I thought that sometimes great storytelling does happen in the edit room.
Yeah. 9 shots instead of 1.
Yeah. We did get I thought, a very lovely reunion with Delenn. I thought I liked that scene. Mm-hmm. I liked how he immediately lied, "I'm fine." And then she's looking at him, "Okay, I'm not fine, but we can talk about this later."
But I get it. We got other things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Very quick scene, but I just any thoughts on that? Karen, Lou, either one, go.
It was sweet. That long. I liked it, but it was very short. I would have liked to see a little bit more, but I like I said, I get it. It wouldn't have been terribly believable if they didn't go see Susan right away.
Yeah, I thought it was just the right length, to be honest. I think the main thing that they did a nice punctuation mark on was Sheridan telling Delenn that he saw her exactly like she was when he was being interrogated. And I thought that was a nice punctuation to that.
Yeah.
So I thought the scene was just pretty well. It's exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah, once again, and I know I'm getting repetitiveness, and I apologize to our wonderful listeners, but yeah, once again, if we could have shown the shuttle where, first off, when Franklin breaks in, John going, "Is that you?" "No, I don't trust you. I know you're right." Like, how does he know this Franklin is really Franklin? And then also, it would have been interesting to be in the shuttle going to meet the Barbari cruiser. There's Lita, there's Franklin, there's Garibaldi and John. That would have been an interesting, the discussion we didn't get to see would have been nice.
Yeah.
And also, I would have liked to seen, "Are you really there, Delenn? Is that really you?"
Sure. Yeah.
To show the traumatic aftermath.
Yeah, or even a line "It's hard for me to believe you're real." Just anything that shows us that he's not all back yet.
I saw
again Monday morning
there. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
so
Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Quarterbacking right now.
Yeah. So the last storyline, and I'm curious to see how you guys are going to talk about this. Susan is ready to lead the attack. They find out that not everyone who agrees to come over on your side really meant to. I was very happy to hear that, because you guys had mentioned that, going, "Are we sure every crew member is 100% behind?" So we can do that. Susan, I like her speech. I watched it and I said, I wonder if Lou and Karen are going to think it's over the top. And we get a space battle, and she is injured. So we'll go up to there, and then we'll talk about the consequences of her being injured and that John visiting with her. I think it's Lou. Go for it.
Yeah, that was out of left field, how that played out to me. I'm curious. I have to say, this was the time I was most tempted to read the next episode's plot line or whatever to find out what exactly happens next, because what happened here really caught me off guard. So I'm wondering, was this by design, or is this a behind the scenes thing where Claudia said, "I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore"? So it'd be interesting to find that out, because her speech, while not totally out of character, it was going, "This seems oddly specific. It's almost like she's doing her eulogy or something like that." So I thought, this is not totally out of character for her, but it seemed to be like there's a lantern being hung on this for some reason, and I wasn't sure what was going on. So that that was interesting. And again, like this whole thing with the Earth being able to incorporate the shadow technology into their ships so quickly. And I guess the show realized it because they had to have a throwaway line in there where Susan said basically the same thing I was thinking. So that was not, I don't want to say good, but it was at least I think they were acknowledging that, yeah, this is a bit of a hand wave. You'll just have to go along with it. And the other thing about it, it didn't really seem to make much difference in terms of the battle. So I didn't really understand the point of it beyond trying to raise stakes. I guess they were trying to do that, but it didn't really convey itself in any shape, way, or form to me. I didn't really see any consequence of the shadow technology. If maybe there were greater losses of the White Stars or something, but I guess we're supposed to say take what happened to the main White Stars as a proof of the shadow technology. So that, yeah, it was, and of course it was good that Marcus was there, and it was good that they paid off his Minbari line that he said to Susan when he thought she was asleep, that she was the most beautiful woman in the world that he'd ever seen. So I thought that was a really good payoff. But again, it's that same thing. It just all happened so fast that it just really didn't get the proper emotional payoff that I think that such a moment should have.
So I'm about to, I do not think I am spoiling anything. I am spoiling something, but I don't think I'm spoiling anything that you guys, if you were watching this at real time, knew. Word had come out that Claudia Christian was not going to be in season 5. When it was announced that they were going to get 5, she was not going to be part of it. And as we get to season 5, we'll discuss the back and forth of the he said, she said about her not being on there. But there is postings where people ask, was this scene written after you found out she wasn't going to be in 5? And he said no. And people said, did you go back and insert scenes into this when you heard she wasn't going to be in 5? And he said no. With that said, Lou, before we go to Karen, any thoughts?
You've got me curious about the back and forth.
Same. Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like an amiable split, but maybe I'm just reading into what you just told me.
No, you are not. All's fine now, but at the time there was a lot of he said, she said.
Okay.
Some friction.
Interesting.
I'm not going to look into that until we know how this resolves. Okay. But I appreciate you telling me.
But that's interesting. I'll just add, because Susan had a pretty big part in this season, so I'm curious as to what the disagreement was about.
Same. Although it sounds like he was going to write it this way anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the part I was most surprised about, and also something that subverted my thinking. Whenever the captain or the second in command or whatever, whenever part of the main cast goes out in a fight, I always wonder, why are they spared and their whole fleet gets damaged, people get hurt? Because that's always something that's not incredibly realistic in science fiction shows. Someone would get hurt in all that. If she goes out in the TIE fighters, and I say it like that to be funny, but she goes out in the TIE fighters all the time. Sinclair went out in the TIE fighters. Michael goes out in them, and none of them ever got hurt. Whereas a lot of the other people, they get hit and off they go and they blow up. And I did little hand movements. Sorry. So yeah, that was a little gratifying to me. I don't like that she got hurt, but I was like, okay, finally, one of the good guys that we know actually gets hurt.
Yeah. But
I was a little sad because I love Susan, and I'm thinking to myself, she's got just a couple of days, but is something going to happen that they save her? To me, when someone from the main cast gets mortally wounded, I wonder what they're going to do to save their life. But now you said that maybe that doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm wondering what comes next with her, how that's going to resolve. I don't know. And I thought her and Mark, again, we haven't gotten a payoff with those two. And that makes me sad.
I think her acknowledgement of his Minbari line is the payoff you're going to get.
I think so too. I think that's as far as we're going to get. But
which is, I think, is a very sweet moment.
Sure, it's
That
sweet.
she mentions that her eidetic memory, and then him saying when she's asleep, you'll never know. And I do think it was a fun banter back and forth about him. You can either have 4 hours and 55 minutes of sleep or 4 hours and 59 minutes of
me bothering you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was it nice?
They're always cute together. And I get what you guys are saying, but as a romance person, I would have liked to see them together, at least for a little bit. And
Endgame. Yeah, we want endgame.
Right, exactly. We want a HEA, as we put it, a happily ever after. But apparently we're not going to get that. And we get it with John and Delenn. I hope this kind of thing that takes me aback. And you can tell from how I'm discussing it that not everybody on the show gets their happy ever after. Like it on one hand, and then on the other hand, I feel like this is going to sound entitled, but because of how much they've been hinting at it, I feel cheated just a little bit because I would have liked to see them together.
One of the things that stood out to me is that because I knew this was a 5-season arc, and at this point, I'm watching this and I knew there was going to be a 5th season, that TNT. Right. So everyone who originally didn't know that, but I was going, man, they can let people die. There is, and I always use the untimely of little Joe gets married, she dies in the next episode on Ponderosa. No one remembers that he was even married. And so I always like doing that timely reference. What the hell are you talking about, Jesse?
Yeah, and especially like back then, this wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
To have a main character killed off. This was not a thing. And it's happened more and more as time goes on that people like to do that to us. Poor Sean Bean. How many things has he died in?
Yeah, exactly.
Game of Thrones is the example that I put forth as people that we don't expect to die.
Yeah.
So we're a little more jaded. But if I had watched this back then, I would have been 100% shocked by it.
So we're talking a little bit. So I want to keep telling Karen, what did you think of John and her discussions? And I was very touched by her. She often calls him Captain, similar to, like, I always think of West Wing, that Leo never calls Jed Bartlett Jed, except in very slim time, right? Like it's rare when he's like, oh, Jed.
It means something.
Yeah. You know, when Bartlett tells him about having MS and him saying, I wanted to be president. And, oh, Jed, I'm so sorry. So for her to say, John, we're friends, they aren't telling me the truth. And then look at him and I've got to tell her. I can't sugarcoat it. Go ahead. Your thoughts, Karen, and then I want to hear yours, Lou.
Yeah. I thought that scene was very impactful. And that they cut immediately to him taking the helm of the Agamemnon.
Yeah.
Because we know that they have a past, Susan and John, that they served together at some point. And for her to say, if you're going to lead from your old ship.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good twist to it. And where he tells her that she's only got a couple of days to live, that was a little impactful to me. That really meant, and like you say, she calls him John, and that it always means something.
Yeah.
When a subordinate talks to the other person as a person.
Yeah.
And it showed that they also have a friendship, which I liked.
Yeah. Yeah. I just was really happy with this. How about you, Lou? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I thought it was a good scene, a little it's not rushed, but oddly, I'm thinking of other shows where characters have died and how her impact of her impending death, I assume at this point, is muted simply by the fact that she's still alive. I'm thinking of Spock in The Wrath of Khan, or most probably famously in Firefly, the movie.
Wash.
That suddenness has a much greater impact than if It's if you've lived long enough, you're going to experience death in your family. And I can tell you from experience that yes, the pain of somebody dying, passing suddenly hurts a hell of a lot, but the torture of watching somebody slowly decline over a period of time is far worse and more persistent. In terms of drama, I always prefer the quick death. Yes, you want the characters to have that last moment of between them, like Kirk and Spock do in the engine room. But at the same time, it's like what happened to Tasha Yar on Star Trek. The conversation afterwards, like with Data and Picard, and Data saying that I find my thoughts turning more to myself and what I'm losing than to her. And Picard tells Data that's exactly right. That's the kind of moments that you'd hope for. But for here, again, it's just the payoff just doesn't really resonate with me as much as it could have. So I got nothing against the actors. I think they did a great job with what they had to work with, and it's great to see everybody have their teary-eyed moment. But it's just a muted thing for me. That's really how I feel about that.
I still haven't forgiven Joss Whedon for Wash's death.
You're hitting an emotional chord with me today, Lou. I don't know if we'll keep this in the podcast or not, but today's Mother's Day, and my mom is in a nursing home after a stroke. Right. And we are slowly just watching her. She's not there mentally. She's just not the same person. And right before the reason I was late for a few minutes is Linda was checking on me, and she says, "You look a little sad." I go, "It's Mother's Day. I can't call my mom." Mm-hmm. My sister's going to go see her, and they'll probably call me from her cell. But I'm watching her just not, it isn't her anymore. And it's just very sad. So yes, I totally, absolutely. Yeah, it really is. All right. Back. Okay. We do get the ending where John is at the bridge. Always love Captain on the Bridge. And
as opposed to Bridge on the Captain.
Yes. Yeah.
And
which also happened in this episode.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking Star Trek 6, but Next Generations. But yes.
Yeah. I assume we've got a pretty big battle coming up.
Yes.
And all the pieces are set, and we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts on this one?
Because you asked us for a reaction of the opening scene, what we thought was going on. I did like the staging of those scenes, how they were kept interspersing different characters in the same positions. Yeah. Sometimes it was the interrogator, sometimes it was Franklin. And I thought that was really well staged and really well edited. So I just wanted to make a mention of that because it got glossed over. But I thought that was really well done.
Yeah,
and I thought it was also interesting that they brought back, it was the same interrogator. The second interrogator we saw is still there. And they discuss once again. Yeah, I just think really, as it said, a busy, hectic episode. Would have liked to have a little more room to breathe, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And
any final
I hate to bring this up, but you mentioned that it was the same interrogator. And we had wondered, why would they bring in this other interrogator and do this all over again? And it shows they didn't do it all over again. He had a different way to try and break. Yeah. I thought that was a good point as well. Yeah. But I agree, that was blocked really well.
Yeah, I thought so too. Very good. All right. Ratings. Karen.
I'll give this 8.5 eidetic memories.
Ah, nice. Lou?
I will give this 8 missed opportunities.
Okay. I'm going to go 8.5 headaches, but better than being dead.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, we didn't talk about that, did we? He says a headache might hurt me, but I don't think I'll be able to recover from being dead.
Yeah. Yeah, he was really funny. And then I need more fiber in my diet was also that was a fun line. The Lurker's Guide is an 8.84. A little bit higher than our average, but not too bad. Oh, I did want to mention that there was, when they were going to get to Mars, when they were going to try to get to the interrogation center, there was an actress there who, on IMDb, she's called Felicia. I don't know if they called her hair, but the one that said, "Hey, I'll be happy to leave you here and just go." And I went, I know her. And if you go, she's actually Musetta Vander, She is Dutch South African, and she has been in a ton of stuff and a lot of vocal stuff, but I was like, she looks familiar. And I couldn't find anything that stood out except she is someone who's just been in a ton of just different episodes of everything from Stargate to Emperor Battle for, let's see, Secret Agent Man, or Brother Where Art Thou?
Mortal Kombat. I'm sure I saw her in Mortal Kombat.
So yeah, just it's always nice when you see someone going, oh, wait a minute, I recognize her.
Interesting. You would have thought she would have been a bigger star because she has a good physical presence.
I did too. I thought she was so really pretty. Interesting. Yeah. Yes, I'm very pretty.
Yeah. Oh, she was in Stargate. So my husband probably knows. Yeah. My husband has watched Stargate about 20 times.
Okay. All right, so very nice. We did get a feedback from the usual suspects. Karen, did you get all 3 of them?
I did.
Yeah.
Let's start with Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hey,
he says, hey, guys. Very engaging, peppy episode, even though it's slim on verisimilitude at several points, but gives a lot of events to have tons of feelings about. And once again, telepaths, okay? You don't use them to change Sheridan for unexplained reason, but why not use them to extract information? Makes no sense. Also, have you noticed that in his hallucination, Sheridan has oranges on the table? It was probably one time when I noticed them and how out of place they seem until I read somewhere that they appear all the time in his quarters. Oh, that's an interesting bit of trivia.
He's mentioned them.
He has mentioned them.
He has talked about when he was excited about getting fresh fruits and vegetables when he went to Babylon 5. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense that he would keep that in his quarters.
So it was a bit of an Easter egg. That's cool.
Yeah, nice. I agree.
Ivanova is a terrifying commander of the fleet even before her big speech, probably because Claudia Christian naturally has a colder personality than Bruce Boxleitner. Her voice roles are all like that. And this is the episode where I got a desire to see more of her in that role. And I'm sad we didn't before that to provide more contrast. I didn't care for Earth ships suddenly getting what seems like shadow beam weapons in addition to the organic armor. It's too much, too fast. One improvement would already make them terrifying. But the point that always took me out of the episode the most is the League voting to help Sheridan. They would probably move to stop relationships with Earth at this point and no more, considering how resistant and uncooperative they were up until that point, and how they had to be dragged screaming into anything productive. Too much simple Federation building. With regards, Nathan. It's weird how we're like completely flipped around on that.
I was going to say that same thing, that it's our favorite scene. And I always I used to listen to Ronald Moore's podcast about Battlestar Galactica, and he would mention someone giving a counterpoint, and you go, that's a fair get. I think this is a fair get. It works for me, but I could understand why he would think that.
Yeah, I agree.
I totally agree with his analysis of the scene, but I looked at it from the character perspective, and I thought the payoff was worth the hand wave moment. It's like the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, like the lighting of the beacons. All those beacons are going across all those mountaintops. Like all these people had to stay there all that time. You're going, okay. But then when the music swells and then King Rohan, the king stated and says, and Rohan will answer, then that makes that lighting of the beacons sequence worth it. And this was the same thing on a smaller scale for me.
And they've set it up well, I think, with the other episode between the two of them.
Yep.
Okay, so David next. Hi, David. He says, hi, all. Hopefully just a short missive on this episode. Not much happened, ... With the opening, we see Sheridan is still being interrogated now with drugs. I will say he looks extremely haggard in this scene. How much longer can he hold out? Plus, Garibaldi has made contact with the resistance and promptly gets the crap beat out of him for his efforts. What did he expect? A bouquet of roses? The episode proper starts with Garibaldi about to be summarily executed for betraying Sheridan. Thankfully, Franklin has just barely enough trust in him to hear him out, and Lita was able to confirm his story, even convincing number one. A couple of thoughts. Number one was really gung-ho on killing Garibaldi, Wasn't she more understanding of Jack when it was revealed he was under alien control? Oh, that's true. When he had the...
But Jack was one of hers, and
Right.
Garibaldi isn't. So
right.
Yeah, that was my mind. Yeah.
And there's consequences to Garibaldi betraying Sheridan, because Sheridan was going to help Mars. So, and that's just us. So now I'll go back.
Yeah.
I really recommend before sending Lita out on any more adventures, you at least give her basic weapons safety training. That's funny. Finally, I'd recommend Garibaldi try eating at least one salad a day.
Yes.
We get to see what Ivanova has been up to no one's surprise, she is kicking ass and taking names. Unfortunately, one of the survivors has some bad news. Some of the EA ships that have joined them aren't really on their side, and Clark has some super ships just waiting on them. Ivanova decides to hit them head on with just the White Stars. To be honest, probably the worst military decision she could make, IMO. Leave a couple of White Stars at the rendezvous site to tell others of the change in plans, then move the bulk of the White Stars to a different section so they can hit the advanced ships from a completely different direction. Yeah, that seems like a better policy to me, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Agreed. A fair get again. Garibaldi, Franklin, and Lita go forth in a harebrained effort to free Sheridan from the interrogation center. This IMO is the weakest part of the story. What if they hadn't killed the two guards in the tunnels and gotten their uniforms? By the way, a continuity goof, the guards were both in EA gray, but when we see our heroes bluffing their way in, Franklin is in the blue. Question, I found it a bit odd that Franklin brought a kit for suturing Garibaldi's wound, but nothing like bandages to go over the top of it. Also, why did Lita bring a change of clothes? Yeah, that's pretty much what we said. I do the kit thing. Why wasn't there a pressure bandage or something in there?
Yeah.
They do manage to barely pull off the rescue, so there's that. I'm just glad they didn't show the security guy that Sheridan unloaded the PPG on. The look on Garibaldi's face said volumes. Speaking of, he seemed to have recovered very quickly from the beating he got from the resistance. And we also said, this is Karen speaking, we also said that he didn't have a lot of consequences from Lita invading his mind either. So they really did prop him up in this episode.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Yeah.
We get back to the White Stars right before the battle. Ivanova reveals to Marcus that she's aware of his feelings for her. Then we see the start of the battle. Apparently, Clark's super ships are EA ships with shadow spines. After one of Ivanova's best monologues, she's not God, just the right hand of vengeance, the pitched battle begins. We see several White Stars and EA ships destroyed. Our heroes are ultimately victorious, though badly damaged, only to be taken out by debris, apparently killing almost everyone aboard except Marcus and a severely injured Ivanova. We get the heartfelt scene where Sheridan and Delenn reunite before they go check up on her. It's bad, at best a few days. Personally, I think it was perfect to see the single tear going down Marcus's face. Yeah, that was...
Yeah, I didn't mention that because I knew he had said this in the email, but yes, I agreed.
Okay, and here's I forgot to mention this. He's a virgin. So his first can't be Ivanova now.
Oh, yes.
That makes me sad.
Yeah.
Questions. How will they save Ivanova? Why is it important to have Delenn join up with the fleet? Who is now in charge of B5? Okay, there you go. Zach, or what's the name of that other guy?
Corwin.
Yeah, I guess Corwin. Join us next week when we find out why knowing the difference between longitude and latitude are important.
And by the way, I just want to thank all our emailers for the little clues they give, the little tease.
I love those.
Yes,
I love those.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And Lou and I are most likely going to watch this either today or tomorrow, the next episode. So it's not like it really puts a big bug in our ear about it. Yeah. And I don't read the feedback until I read it on air. Okay, and we got a fairly long feedback from Texas. So let me see if I can pare this down as I read it. Sheridan's still in the lockup and Garibaldi's trying to find a way to explain himself. Doesn't go over very well. Number one wants to shoot him outright, but Stephen wants to hear his side. That sounds magnanimous, but I get the sense it's more he wants to look Garibaldi in the eye and demand to know why, rather than see if there's any extenuating circumstances. Garibaldi pleads his case. Literally, he is, as has been noted, someone who does not want to enter conversations without knowing where they're already going. Here he has to convince people who are already disinclined to believe him, and he is practically begging them to give him a chance. It's a mark of how desperate he is that he agrees to be telepathically scanned. He may like Lita, but I doubt he'd be willing to let her into his head under normal circumstances. But he does, and she finds proof that Bester did have his brain dry cleaned, pressed, and starched. So with that out of the way, Garibaldi, Franklin, and Lita go off to save the day. Speaking of Franklin, I've seen Richard Biggs in a villainous role. We get a slight taste of that in the opening when interrogator Franklin gives that smile as Sheridan drinks the spiked quote-unquote coffee. I like how Texas has put the exclamation mark in between interrogator and Franklin. I use that a lot to say like tiger, exclamation point, kitty, things like that. I just think that's a good shortcut. In the meantime, Ivanova leads the fleet forward until she receives information that new advanced destroyers are being sent to intercept them. Figuring the White Stars have the best chance against them, she leads them ahead of the main fleet to spring the trap. Regardless, they are here now, and Ivanova has no intention of letting them past her, which she makes clear with one of her most epic monologues to date. The battle is short but intense. The advanced destroyers pack a hard punch. A couple of White Stars are obliterated, but the shattered destroyers are now eliminated. But then Ivanova's White Star is hit by debris, leaving her gravely wounded. Marcus manages to get her out, but it's not good. It's revealed that she only has a few days to live, but before that, she makes one request of Sheridan: command the final battle from the Agamemnon. Sheridan grants her wish, and the fleet heads towards the next objective, Mars. And that's where we leave off. So until next time, when we see Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy, and Doc storm the Wicked Queen's castle. This is the Texas on the Shock signing off. Entos av Vene. I just watched something where they asked people to name all 7 dwarves, and none of them could do it. So I like that we see that Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy, and Doc on here.
I don't know if I could.
Dopey, Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy, Doc. I got 2 more. Dopey, Happy. That's all 7.
Did you say bashful?
Bashful.
Oh, bashful. I must have said dopey twice.
Okay, nice.
The 3 of us managed to do it.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Lou? Anything on our YouTube channel?
Pretty quiet this week, surprisingly, but maybe it's just the episode itself. I don't know. But if he FSX said there are FSX, there are 4 lights.
Yeah.
Nice. Good. All right. If someone wants to reach you, Karen, how can they? And how can they give us feedback?
Oh, okay. Our email is jklb5podcast@gmail.com. They can find me at Oliveria on the various social medias. And there's a link in my bio on the Twitter machine to my blog, at which you can find some links that might be of interest.
And Lou?
You can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find the Babylon 5 podcasts, along with our JKL Media podcasts. Today, we're going to be doing the Quester tapes. That might be a title obscure to some of you, but it's definitely worth checking out. We've also done other things, TV shows, books, movies, and worth checking out. And I hope that you find some time to do it at some point, because there's a lot of good stuff in those one-off episodes that we do. As well, I have my writer interview episodes up there, as well as the Stephen King episodes. And it's only a couple more weeks until the next Stephen King book, so I can hardly wait. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, SYTSMA.
I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, aka X. You can hear me talk music on Set Lusting Bruce and on Perfectly Good Podcast. And coming up for the next 7 weeks in a row on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, Charles Skaggs and I will be talking about every new Doctor Who episode, and I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be fun. So please let us know. We are rolling toward the end of season 4. And just to give you some background, we will probably do In the Beginning at the end of season 4. And then we'll get on 5. And then I would appreciate anyone give us where we should watch the rest of the movies. I probably can go to Lurker's Guide to give suggestions, but I'd love y'all's feedback. Karen, Lou, thank you as always. This is a highlight of my week. I just love spending time with you guys.
Same. Yep.
And thank you, listeners, for indulging our friendship and us getting to hang together.
That's right.
Now, remember to be safe, be kind, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, moms and everyone else.
That's right.
Hey.
Yep.
Super. All right.
And scene.